Setup and planning, the investigation begins. In darkened rooms with nothing but a flashlight, senses, and a various array of investigation equipment to guide them, researchers pair up in teams and patiently wait, searching for any signs of paranormal activity.
Different investigators work better with certain people. Everybody has their own technique. I personally sometimes would like to taunt, and try and get the spirits going. Some people aren't comfortable doing that, so obviously I'm not going to work with somebody like that. So you're gonna know who works best with each other and what their particular skill is. If I'm really good at EVP, I'm also not going to pair up with somebody else who's really good at EVP. I might be somebody who's more of a photographic expert. So you mix and match who works well with what, whose techniques best pair with somebody else. Sometimes maybe I'll take somebody who's more scientific approach and put them with somebody who might douse and be a little bit more psychic-like, and we'll go from there.
My MO generally, what I like to do is I usually have a camera on me. Sometimes I have a recorder on me. I'll take pictures once in a while, but really my MO is I like to sit and observe.
This stage of the investigation can take anywhere from a few hours to an entire night without producing a single shred of evidence. In fact, most teams find that 80% of their investigations usually yield no evidence at all. But it's the rare few that do that keep them determined to continue and capture conclusive proof of the unknown.
The client's in the house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We come in for 3 hours. So the likelihood that something's going to happen in those 3 hours is not as strong as it is for them. So we will come back and do it again. And more times than not, we'll get something on that second investigation that we didn't get the first time.
During a typical investigation, researchers first establish a general base reading of the location's temperature and electromagnetic field. These base figures are useful to identify any environmental fluctuations. They are also useful to establish any correlation between environment and paranormal phenomenon should any photo or audio evidence be captured. To ensure these readings are accurate and to avoid any contamination of evidence, many find it necessary to pay close attention to the environmental impacts of their own team. Although a quiet and controlled environment is one of the primary goals of most groups, there are times when things don't always go as planned.
What else was Aunt Lucy doing at Paranormal? Drinking. Drinking and rapping. Is your car? Wine. Lots of wine. I have another bow I have to tie.
The first night we went out with Lisper, everything was great, except for one totally crippling factor: the noise. The people who were running the restaurant decided to have some kind of social event right in the middle of the investigation, and not only was collecting EVPs out of the question, but the investigators couldn't even hear each other talking. It was terrible.
While most would agree that any background noise can taint or destroy the audio collected on an investigation, very often the cause is not always the client. Research teams can sour their own investigations by failing to remain quiet or even by the presence of uncoordinated or uncooperative team members, a situation which has some creating strict guidelines for inclusion into their groups.
You see a lot of teams out there with people that you think, why are they here? They have to talk to clients, they have to ease people's fears, they have to educate the public, and they just don't fit that mold per se. And I think the teams need to choose their members a little more carefully.
When the investigation is over, the evaluation of evidence begins. What took 2 hours to record can take 4 hours to evaluate. A tedious and at times daunting task, but one that many groups find well worth the effort and essential to their reputation and credibility as paranormal researchers. Like any field of study, paranormal investigation is subject to its share of harsh criticism and derogatory accusations, not only from skeptics, but from other teams and colleagues. A problem many believe is the result of an unpopular investigation doctrine or the failure to challenge their clients' claims for the sole purpose of sensationalizing their own reputation.
I think that a lot of teams need to incorporate science into their work. They need to incorporate a skeptic into their team, make sure they keep that skeptic view. I think teams need to start trying to disprove some of the claims from these people so that they have add a little credibility to themselves.
Although investigating in the dark is a typical practice of most teams, there are those who find it unnecessary, such as the members of ISIS Investigations, a spirit investigating witches coven from New York.
We found that spirits don't care what time it is. Most people miss the things that happen during the day because they're so wrapped up in the mundane, getting ready to go to work, get the kids off to school. So when little things happen, they don't even pay attention. At night when they go to lay down and get comfortable and everything is quiet, that's when they notice things. But that doesn't mean it's the only time that it happens. So we do a lot, 90% of are done in the daytime, and we usually always get evidence. So.
The daylight investigations and the fact that they're witches is not the only traits that make ISIS Investigations unique. They are also completely comprised of mediums. To find out if this type of demographic and technique has any bearing on the evidence collected, we decided to follow ISIS on an investigation here at the old Knox Mansion in Johnstown, New York. This large neoclassic 42-room Victorian estate was once the home of Charles and Rose Knox, creators of the famous Knox Gelatin Company. Various reports throughout the years tell of mysterious sightings of the deceased Knox family, strange voices, footsteps, and fragile items in the home being inexplicably broken.
Very cool. It's a good sign.
What's the significance?
Well, hawk is messengers from the gods, and raven is messengers from the dead. Cool. Gonna go up and ask them if it's okay if we start?
Yeah. I'll be right back.
While Patricia and Dana contact the owner of the home, the rest of the team prepares for the investigation, unaware of what might await them inside.
Yeah, when you enter the door, this is the room you'll be in.
Yeah, and we do 1, 2, then skip the library, 3.
Yeah, you gotta
4,
skip the library.
4, 5, and then we'll take a break, okay?
Yeah, you start with the gold.
Hello.
Hey, darling, how are you?
Gold room, so.
Hey, Marty, this is Justin,
Hello.
Satish, Robin, Angela. We don't want them to get preconceived notions. Right.
Okay.
They always go in cold. Okay, guys, let's go.
So gold room first, Pat?
Say what?
Gold room first.
None of the mansion's history or details of the haunting, however, are given to the team prior to the investigation. They are also instructed to investigate the mansion's library last. This is done to avoid any preconceived opinions which may contaminate any evidence collected by the group. After entering the mansion and unpacking their equipment, the investigation began. One of the first rooms investigated was the gold room, named for the 18-karat gold scrolling which lines the ceiling. Several members of the investigation team made claims to sensing the presence of a woman and possibly a small child, which they believe occupy the room.
It was hard to get like a solid image because there was so much and the house was filled with so much stuff, but that is where I picked up an image of like not a child, but a youngish woman and then a young male child there, like around the piano. And I also picked up on, a Native American woman, but that wasn't something that we were able to verify with any of the research afterwards.
The images Angela picked up on were not only verifiable through the home's history, they were also sensed by another member of her team at a different point during the investigation.
If there was any object in that room that she was most close to, it was the piano. But to say that the piano and her are connected to the house, or if she's just connected to the piano and the piano is not from the house, it was hard to differentiate or discern at that moment.
Although claims of activity in the gold room were not able to be documented scientifically, they were reinforced by other team members who claimed to have had temperature fluctuations in and around the piano area.
Actually, when I first came in here, I had a pretty good fluctuation in front of the piano. It stayed consistent the whole time, but then I got really hot and it sprung right up to 28 to 32 Celsius, and then it went back down. It was normal the rest of the entire time.
Directly adjacent to the gold room is the mansion's dining room, also the subject of synonymous psychic impressions. Here, 3 members of the team felt the presence of a maid staff that used to work at the mansion.
When we got to the dining room, I said, I do sense the history of this room. It reminds me of like maids walking around. And right below it, I wrote down that I feel a sense of sadness in the room, and the word loss came into my mind. I'm not sure what kind of loss. And my first guess was I thought there was a loss of a young girl in this room. I'm not so sure. And then as we did the history, yes, that's what I felt. And because, again, we went in cold, we didn't know what the history of the house was. And then after the history was done, we realized that she did have, children that did pass away very early. And and Angela and I were just talking about this, and we were thinking that for a very wealthy family, the burden of looking after the kids probably fell on the kitchen help, and the maids and so forth. And they probably would feel sad being more connected to the child if the child does pass away.
Well, especially in this family, because both the parents were very, very active business people, and it more so for the time than a different type of, stay-at-home mom. Rose wasn't a stay-at-home mom. She was helping with the business a great deal of time, so the staff were probably more involved with the child rearing.
Yeah, I also noted maids in that room. I've sensed someone putting linen away after doing the daily laundry, and I felt like she had bumped my hip, telling me to get out of the way so that she can get into the drawers.
I had a similar experience where I felt almost like when you're in a crowded room and somebody just kind of like nudges you a little, and you know that they're there, but there was no one else around. It was over by the window benches in that same area.
The billiard room is the largest of the mansion's 42 rooms. It houses not only a 300-year-old lava stone fireplace, but according to the ISIS investigation team, this room is also the location of what they claim is one of 3 physical spirit encounters.
Okay, so in the billiard room, I know a couple people that have felt head pressure, Satisha.
Yeah, I got dizzy when I walked into the room, so.
And somebody felt something grab their leg.
That was me. Yep.
Yeah.
I think I was standing by the fireplace, and I was just looking around just to get a feel of the room. And then right below me, I felt something grabbing my leg, and I just had to shake it off. It wasn't like something was tugging me where I couldn't break free from it. It felt kind of almost like quicksand a little bit. It was there at one moment, and then it wasn't there. It's like where your leg felt this weight going right through it, and then you could just walk freely, but there's this afterfeel from your senses, like on your nerves, where you knew there was something there because you could feel the tingle still there, but it's no longer there anymore. It's just the echo of whatever grabbed you.
The group's psychic artist Angela Kaufman also felt impressions of a presence in the room and drew this picture of who she believes to be one of the original 4 builders of the Knox Mansion.
When you drew that picture, what was your impression of what you were drawing?
I had no idea.